And if you land at the airport in Accra today and drive into the city, you'll immediately see two completely different realities side by side. So, on one hand, you will see the legacy of the old guard, which is like massive clusters of static billboards, which are competing for their visual space along the major traffic arteries. It's vibrant, but it's very crowded. But if you look through closer, and I talk about looking closer from a media planner's lens, because that's what I believe we need to look into. And you can see the genesis of a massive tech led evolution. So you can see high definition digital screens utilizing dynamic triggers, but there are also data frameworks that are beginning to track how genuinely audience delivery happens rather than just counting these steel structures.
Welcome back to the Beyond the Billboard podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do support us by subscribing. Today, we're going to be exploring a market outside of South Africa, but still on our vibrant African continent, Ghana, West Africa's most dynamic and rapidly growing advertising markets. And our incredible guest that's joining us to dive into the Ghanaian out-of-home landscape is Taniya Mondal. With over 18 years experience in the media and advertising industry and having a wealth of knowledge and perspective to share with regards to the media and advertising landscape in Ghana, we're excited to hear Taniya's perspective and insights when it comes to the Ghanaian out-of-home landscape. Hi, Taniya. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So to set the scene for our audience and our listeners today, it would be really fantastic if you can give the current lay of the land of the Ghanaian out-of-home market and the Ghanaian out-of-home landscape, and just share a bit more about that so that all of us can understand and understand more about it.
So what I'll do is I'll take you straight to the Katoga International Airport in Accra. And if you land at the airport in Accra today and drive into the city, you'll immediately see two completely different realities side by side. So on one hand, you will see the legacy of the old guard, which is like massive clusters of static billboards, which are competing for their visual space along the major traffic arteries. It's vibrant, but it's very crowded. But if you look through closer, and I talk about looking closer from a media planner's lens, because that's what I believe we need to look into. And you can see the genesis of a massive tech led evolution. So you can see high definition digital screens utilizing dynamic triggers, brand activations that are syncing with, the commuting peak hours. But there are also data frameworks that are beginning to track how genuinely audience delivery happens rather than just counting these steel structures. So from if you look at Ghana, outdoor isn't just growing in size, but it's actually undergoing a very structural shift, which is from the raw material, which is like, raw real estate visibility, into more data driven accountability. As an agency, we have stopped asking our clients to just invest in those transactional media footprints, but instead we are showing them how targeted contextual outdoor delivers a very tangible return on investment. And hence, I think I'm incredibly excited to pull back the curtain on what's really driving Ghanaian consumers' journey today on out of home.
I love that you've shared a bit more of the kind of out-of-home experience. So as you arrive, what are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And what's interesting, in my intro, in my opening, we're talking about this rapidly growing market, a very dynamic market. And what's lovely to hear is that, you've got these high definition, you've got the LED screens in the market. You are using data and tech to better understand audiences and how they move within these real spaces in the real world, and how they're engaging, or what that potential reach is with that out-of-home. But for Ghana as a market, is it as fragmented in the number of players, or is it more consolidated as a market when it comes to number of out-of-home media suppliers?
I think, in Ghana, the way the media suppliers are positioned, basically there are 4 to 5 key suppliers who own almost 80% of the inventory. The remaining 20% of the inventory is distributed across local players. They're not too big, but they invest more into, like, those static billboards. But the key suppliers are the ones who are looking at driving the kind of invention we're seeing Ghana is currently experiencing on outdoor. So these are 3 to 4 suppliers who are majorly owning that innovation, as well as 80% of the inventory, as I call it. If you look at Ghana, there is this major economic triangle: Ghana, Kumasi, and Takoradi, where these major players are also positioning their footprint. So that's how the market is currently, yeah, positioned.
Can you give me an idea of what do you believe, or maybe the percentage of out of home obviously being focused in Accra? I would imagine that majority obviously is within Accra. We see the same in most countries, right? But I would imagine there's less, obviously, digital out of home, tech enabled in a lot of the outer lying areas and regions, and mostly focused around Accra.
That's true. So I think I would say, like, 60 to 70% of out of home is concentrated in Accra, and the remaining is actually now, but with Kumasi and Takoradi is major for their oil corridors. Like, with those expansion happening, there's definitely a shift in out of home expansion in those regions. And early brands, like, majority of the big players are taking advantage of that. So they are the ones who are being the early adapters, and going into those regions, exploring out of home. So that's how it's positioned. So, but 60 to 70% of the inventory again sits with Accra, and that's where the concentration is.
It's great to get a lay of the land of Ghana. I know, kind of, for a lot of our audience who are listening who are based in South Africa, it's always fascinating to see what our neighboring countries are doing. I know that Nigeria and Kenya seem to have joined the digital out-of-home landscape before Ghana. And I'm thrilled to hear that you guys have also joined that space now, because I think the opportunity that it opens up from a market perspective is amazing. I'm a little bit jealous of Ghana in joining when they did, because I think a lot of the learnings that had to happen and the tech and all of those things, joining at a time that all of that work has been done already, I think you really come to market. You kind of leapfrog some of the learnings that some of the media owners in South Africa would have gone through. And I wonder if you could just share an update with us around the digital out-of-home landscape in Ghana. You did touch that you guys have got fantastic screens in market, as well as tech and data. So if you could share an update with us around that.
Definitely, why not? So I think, when it comes to digital outdoor, again, we look at it from an agility and cost efficiency also. So within this inflationary environment, you can see digital outdoor saves the brands massive production, printing, and flighting costs. Because with the traditional outdoor, you see that you have to have a lead time into production, printing, and then even flighting. But with digital outdoor, as we all understand, we are saving costs on those, and we're also eliminating long turnaround times. With this, what we've seen is that, major FMCG and these financial brands, they are owning specific times of the day, whether you want to run breakfast themed creatives in the morning between 6 to 9 a.m., or it's during your outbound commute when you're shifting to more corporate or lifestyle messaging during the evening. And that's where I think, that day parting and contextual relevance really comes in handy. So from a programmatic infrastructure point of view as well, you can see that with programmatic buying coming in, we can see that there is a lot of cross-channel campaigns that is triggering the outdoor delivery based on real-time data input. So we can clearly see that shift happening, and it's definitely something that we advise our clients to look up for when we are planning outdoor for them. So that's the way I think the shift is happening, and that pivot is actually helping brands take a lot of advantage of outdoor.
You touched on the programmatic and the dynamic piece around targeting at specific times, which I think is one of the huge benefits of digital out of home. And I also think it opens up the door to tap into other budgets. So if certain clients are only looking to do digital online, then if you are digitally enabled in the out of home space, specifically in programmatic too, it sometimes can be an easy cross-channel investment that you can kind of top up your exposure from an online perspective with the digital out of homes. I also wanted to ask, I know in South Africa, there's a lot of different creative that's happening in the digital out of home space. We see 3D anamorphic being used, 3D deep screening happening. Are you guys also exploring in that space in Ghana with the digital
Mhm.
innovation that's possible?
Definitely. I think, some of the brands have already started taking advantage of that, and I see those 3D boards coming up, but they're very limited as of now. 3D is not too, I mean, we are
Mm.
just limited to 3 or 4 billboards in Accra that actually give you that 3D experience. So I can see that uh, some early adapters and brands that are very iconic are already taking advantage of that. But again, it comes at a cost, and justifying that is something that we really need to integrate a bit better into their marketing strategy. And we are seeing that happening slowly but steadily. It's still in the nascent stages, as I see, but Ghana is definitely tapping into that and ready for that shift.
Yeah, it's also a very good point around the cost for the production. I think we see the same thing in South Africa, although we might have more screens that are enabled and we
Hmm.
maybe are doing it more often. It is still a huge investment for the client to be making in that type of creative. It's an execution often only on one particular screen or a handful of screens. And
Hmm.
I think the real way to get your best bang for your buck there is around filming it, seeding it on social, making sure it's living on other channels too, so that the investment in the production goes beyond. So yeah, very good point around that.
Very true. And what we've noticed is that, from a study that we have conducted in house, we've seen that when a brand is actually investing in maybe digital out home or where there is cross channel marketing happening, the propensity of an audience clicking into the mobile banner or like the same brand advertising on digital or their social media handles goes up by 20 to 25%. And that's an in-house
Wow.
study we've done. So clearly, while the market may be cluttered in terms of outdoor in Ghana, you can really see that there's a lot of clutter when it comes to static billboards. So we don't really, advise our clients to be making the loudest voice, but we believe in innovation. And that's where we tell our clients to make sure that, we are choosing billboards that are closer to the point of purchase and we're innovating more to stand out from that clutter. And that's where they get more visibility, and with less cost you're able to tap into better ROIs.
Mm. I think it's amazing that you've recognized how do you maneuver or how do you navigate a market with clutter, right? With out of home clutter. And it's the same here in South Africa. There's some parts of South Africa and it's a lot of African markets. And I think what's amazing is that you have mentioned how you are advising clients to navigate that and to help to still be using the medium in its just a strategic way and tapping into a strategic ability. So like really, really still using static, but you're using it from a proximity approach and driving that point of interest, right? And I think that's the thing is that the biggest thing is about tapping into the strategic abilities of what out of home can deliver. And I love that you've also raised a local study. I think it's amazing for a lot of markets around Africa to focus on growing their local research with regards to out of home and being able to showcase that to clients, to obviously either increase spend or attract spend that might be on other mediums to grow the out of home market. And it's amazing to hear that you've done a study which really showcased how out of home drives digital media or how it drives an action from a consumer on socials or in digital. We know out of home drives search really, really powerfully. So it's great to see that you've obviously done that study locally.
The Mall, the heart of any community in South Africa. A destination no longer dedicated to shopping, but a place where friends and families go for an experience. This is the rhythm of retail. What if we could put your brand in front of them? With Africa's largest digital mall network at your disposal, you can reach millions of SA's most powerful shoppers when it matters most. Reach them with More TV.
What I would like to ask you now is we're talking about research, we're talking about data. So obviously out-of-home measurement is a huge piece. And as a market in South Africa, there's quite a data complexity evolution that's currently happening. There's multiple providers, local, international players. And I would love to hear, where is Ghana's out-of-home measurement status in the current landscape? Do you have a measurement currency? Are there different international players that have come in that offer different types of measurement? We obviously have that here, different players that offer camera measurement by cameras, by Wi-Fi sensors, robust survey methodology. So it'd be interesting to hear, how is Ghana's out-of-home currently being measured?
Great. I think, that is the major pivot. Historically, out of home, as you know, was sold on very vague traffic estimates. But as an agency, what we have done is we've leveraged our own internal tool. We have Abonton, which is our own proprietary outdoor measurement tool. What that tool does is we're able to actually calculate traffic data and provide the number of eyeballs for why exactly we should be spending on a specific billboard and how competition is placed nearby. So with all of that data, what we do is we have worked with our key suppliers to position all their inventory within that platform. That helps us get all the inventory in one dashboard, and the client, even at the comfort of their homes or offices, they're able to buy out of home inventory through our platform. So I think that's a major advantage we have built in for Ghana, and that gives them real-time measurement into what's happening with their billboards. And even when we generate reports in terms of, the major challenge with out of home is one day you as soon as you fly to your billboards, you're not sure whether the next day somebody is taken off the material or what's happening with your billboards. So with that platform, we're able to even get a live update of the picture of the billboard when we're generating reports. So I think the platform gives us all of that ability to not only measure, but also have a live dashboard where you can buy the out of home inventory you want to purchase, and also generate a report at the point. So you can give,
That's amazing.
yeah, you can have an interface for your client, you can have an interface for your media suppliers to utilize the tool. So I think that's worked for us a lot. And that's how we define out of home, and the measurement metrics are aligned for us while planning.
So I've got so many questions now, because this is really exciting to hear. And I think, something that Tom Goddard, the chairman of World Out of Home, raised at the latest recent World Out of Home conference, and it came up a number of times, even from feedback from people that I know attended, was, how do we remove the tension on the buy side when it comes to out of home? How do we make it more easy? How do we make it more convenient for clients? How do we remove that tension? Because if there's more tension, people are going to go and spend on other mediums, right? They want to make it as easy as possible. And I think what I can hear that you've done is, by creating a platform that a client can log into wherever they may be and be able to purchase, not only purchase, but see live measurement of the site, as well as seeing live reporting of the site. I think you've completely, reduced and removed that tension and made it as easy as possible for clients to work with you as an agency and to work with, obviously, purchasing that medium. And I think that's amazing. I think the benefit is, obviously, you having majority of the inventory across media owners on there. I think there's always a challenge when it comes to markets where there's like hundreds of media owners to try and get them all
Very,
to
very
plug
true.
into the same system. But I think for Ghana, this is absolutely incredible to hear. And I think what it also speaks to is international brands and clients that are wanting to come into the Ghanaian market, or spend in out of home in Ghana. There is a way to do that that is obviously tension free and really easy to be able to see the performance of the different sites. What I would love to ask you, and maybe you want to build on this as I'm talking as well, but what I'd love to also ask you is the data you're using mobile SDK data? Is that how you're obviously getting the measurements? Are you able to share that information with us? I know that's quite a
Yeah.
common, prominent data set that's used around the world to obviously look at live performance of out of home.
So we generally tap into the Google traffic data that's available for us. And what we do is like with our media partners, as I said, Ghana is a smaller market, right? You rightly mentioned that, with markets who have a lot of players, or like, if the geography is not that, if it's very complex, then it gets difficult with measurement. So what we did was when we launched the tool, I think we started with just Accra. And then we kind of, started mapping the other markets as well, which are more important. We haven't done it across Kumasi and a few areas in Takoradi, but it's majorly focused on Accra because, we have like 60 to 70% of the inventory here. So I think it solves for our problem when it comes to Accra. But
Yeah.
yes, there's a lot of work we also need to do. Ghana has 16 regions. So if we have to map it across all of them and have that inventory available, it is a slow progress, and we are it's work in progress, and we are definitely aiming to cover all of the regions as we progress. So yeah, so we are using the Google traffic data as of now, and that's what is built into the tool. And we're also getting some other intelligence from our media partners, because they also have a way in which they are updating their inventories and mapping their own data. So it's a combination of both that helps us get to the measurement metrics.
Liv and I do a training called Out of Home Fundamentals. And in the beginning of the training, we talk about the media professionals' view. And what that is we've gone to senior media professionals across the industry in South Africa, and we've asked them for what their view is of out of home's current status of the market. And one of the key things that comes up is we want a coordinated one platform, one system. And immediately when Taniya was telling us about a platform, Liv, that reminded me immediately of that.
Same thing for me. And I think, again, this speaks to, I touched on how launching digital out of home to your market a little bit after some of the other markets means you leapfrog some of the challenges. I think what Ghana seem to have done really well is taken the learnings from around them, and they've come to market with a really formed system that is almost best in class as it starts, rather than mixing through some of the processes and the different options and methodologies that have come before. So I think it's great. I think it also positions the market as a sophisticated market that is doing things differently. It's being built in the right way. I think it's also exceptionally important when it comes to international brands looking at how they want to be active in each of the markets. I think a lot of the brands that I've worked on internationally, one of the first questions they ask is, how will it be measured? How do you handle measurement in your markets? And I think the clearer of an answer and the easier answer you have to that, the more likely they are to invest in the market. It kind of leads me on to the question I wanted to ask you, Taniya, is for international brands that are looking to invest in Ghana as a market, can you share with us what are some of the landscape insights, the consumer insights that these brands, if they're active in Ghana, what are they getting and what should they know before being active in a market like Ghana from an out-of-home perspective?
So I think out of home in Ghana is an anchor for trust. So if from a consumer perspective or a consumer insights, if I may build on, how local consumers see out of home is, if they see a brand on out of home, they know that you can trust this brand, because that's traditionally how out of home has been. So I think, definitely, if you are not on out of home, though, you have different penetration metrics across different media platforms. Well, definitely TV and radio are still the leading medium here in Ghana, but out of home, with the challenges that we know, that sometimes you don't know how to calculate ROIs, or you're not very sure of the measurement metrics. But definitely outdoor is a platform that you should not be neglecting if you're talking about being an iconic player or being a brand that is here for long term and wants to build that kind of trust and credibility with their audiences. So the way we advise our clients again is, we need to be on we out of home can be used for building a larger than life image. We can explore building wraps, the digital out of home mediums that we've spoken about, which clearly gives you that kind of presence where you can dominate. And with your 3D animations, you can clearly be better at storytelling. And what media does best is, if you can talk to your right audience at the right time, at the right place, through a message that is meaningful and it resonates with the brand. That's how, media is all about. You're trying to build that connection with your audience. And definitely for any international brand that is coming into Ghana, out of home as a platform gives them that first mover advantage. And I think with 70 to 90 minutes, that's the general commute we do in Ghana when it comes to you are you are stuck in traffic, and outdoor is one of the platforms that you will not miss. I think that's the best way you can engage your audiences and have a meaningful conversation with them. So definitely, I think that's where out of home plays the role out of home plays here in Ghana.
It leads me to ask, our closing question for today is, looking forward, what do you think the future of out of home in Ghana looks like? If you look forward with maybe the next 3 to 5 years, what would you like to see in markets, or what's exciting you the most about what's currently happening that you know will continue to grow into the future?
Yeah, I clearly see, as from our discussion, digital outdoor and programmatic outdoor is the way to, journey and progress, because clearly brands are looking to have an attribution framework where they can measure their ROIs in terms of how is that helping them get the value in terms of communication. And also what's important is, the kind of creative messaging you're using. It's not only about buying spaces, it's about how effectively you're able to communicate with your audience and how creative are you in that. So I think it's a combination of both in terms of how outdoor landscape is evolving. We need more creative messaging going out there, and how can we be more innovative, because it's always going to be cluttered, but to be able to get your audience attention, and there's a lot of dwell time there, so you need to make sure that your messaging is very vibrant and it's very creative. That's the way I think I see the outdoor space growing, and brands that want to build, not only drive growth through outdoor but also build a long-term brand loyalty, need to get that right. So it will be a combination of having the right messaging, at the same time cutting through the clutter and being innovative, and then having a cross-functional attribution measurement model where you're connecting outdoor to your other platforms and having an integrated campaign that can measure and tell you how your overall communication with your audience is, and that will drive the required engagement. I see that's how I see outdoor evolving in Ghana.
Yeah. Taniya, thanks so much for sharing that. I think you've touched on almost every single major theme that everybody in every market is focusing on at the moment. And I think what came through for me is that whether you're in a market like Ghana, South Africa, or one of the international markets, we're all kind of looking to focus on the same things. You touched on creativity and the creative messaging for out of home has come up in almost every single episode of this podcast in some form. I think having the billboard structure or the digital out of home structure is a piece of the puzzle. If what you're going to put on there isn't designed for purpose, with intention, and actually, some science behind how we're going to be communicating our message most effectively to connect with the audience, get the message across, be clear on a call to action, then there's no point in putting something up on that site in the first place. So I love that you've touched on that. Your link through to attribution and the modeling around that, I think, is also really critical. All markets are looking at that. Brands are asking more of agencies and media owners to get what they need from their out of home. And I think that you're spot on with your predictions of what the future looks like in out of home, not only in Ghana, but in each of our markets. What you've touched on will be relevant. So thank you so much for your insight into the markets, and also for sharing with us all about what Ghana has to offer.
Thank you so much, Livia and Christy. I think I had an exciting time sharing my thoughts, and it was great to hear from both of you as well, and get an understanding of what the other markets are doing with respect to the outdoor space. So thanks again, and we continue the conversation.
Thank you to the sponsor of today's episode. Your support helps make Beyond the Billboard possible and helps us to bring you the first and only out-of-home podcast in South Africa.
Thanks for joining us today to go beyond the billboard. Subscribe to our podcast to ensure you don't miss out on our exciting content.
Join us again to go beyond the billboard.
1, 2,